Since the beginning of time, a man's reputation has been one of his most valuable assets. Before LinkedIn, before Instagram, before resumes, people knew you because they'd encountered you repeatedly in specific places and often through other people. Today, we live in a strange contradiction. Most men are technically reachable at all times, yet we live isolated from deeper connection. You may know plenty of people in your periphery, but very few in a way that actually matters, which is why the phrase, "your network is your net worth," has become so important again. Not as a hustle bro cliche, but as a practical reality of male life. This video is not about networking in the modern sense of the word. It's not about personal branding or charisma or putting yourself out there. It's about how men actually form friendships, professional relationships, and community ties in adulthood, and why so many men fail to do so despite having every digital tool available. In this video, we are going to give you a practical, unfiltered guide to becoming a well-connected man in 2026, acknowledging all of the challenges and opportunities of our time. But first, we have to understand what it really means to be well-connected. A well-connected man is seldom the loudest person in the room. He doesn't collect contacts, pitch himself, or try to be memorable. In fact, most of the time, he's fairly unremarkable on first encounter. But what separates him from ordinary men is something subtler. People recognize him, and they remember where they met him. They feel comfortable introducing him to others. And when something comes up, a dinner, a job, a project, an invitation, his name is one of the first mentioned, even when he's not in the room. Because there's a difference between simply knowing people and being a part of something. Most men never really cross that threshold, not because they are unpleasant or incapable, but because they misunderstand how adult social life actually works. They either retreat entirely and hope that their competence alone will get them noticed, or they overcompensate, they talk too much, they overshare, they try to force their way into a network rather than earn it. Now, neither of those work because connection, especially among men, is built through repetition, through proximity, and through usefulness over time. And that starts with something very basic. If you work for a company that allows you to work from home or go to the office, go to the office, at least on the days when other people are there. Go in on the days when your team is present. Go in when lunches or after work drinks are happening. Because important conversations don't happen on Zoom meetings, they happen around the coffee maker and the water cooler. Invite one of your teammates out somewhere, or sit next to somebody new at the cafeteria and get to know them. This isn't just about impressing senior people or currying favor. It's actually equally important to form relationships with people who are at the same stage as you. The people whom you will move up alongside as your careers advance. Because opportunities don't always come from people above you. They come from peers who remember you, who trust you, who have grown with you. Now, if you are self-employed or you work alone, the same principle applies. Find a co-working space or pick a coffee shop and stick to it. You're not there to make friends immediately or start asking for phone numbers immediately. You are there initially just to become familiar. That familiarity does something very important. It lowers that friction. The conversations begin to start more naturally. People begin to ask what you do. You'll get invited to lunches, dinners, and parties. And there's one thing that sounds kind of trivial, but most men need to hear this. Leave the AirPods at home. When you're wearing headphones, it's a signal that says, "I'm busy. Don't interrupt me." If you want to be more well-connected and have more conversations, you have to show with your body language that you are open to it.
Now, gents, I recently moved to a new city, which means I'm putting myself out there a lot more to meet new people. And one thing that always gives me confidence whenever I enter a room is always knowing that I've put in the work with my grooming and my fragrance. Now, when you're building a reputation, you don't want a fragrance that's too overwhelming or overpowering. You want something classic. And that's why I always trust Caswell Massey. This brand has been around since 1752, so their soaps, shave creams, and fragrances have stood the test of time. They make beautiful bars of soap in a variety of gentlemanly scents, including Jockey Club, which was enjoyed by JFK. I swear by their shave cream, which I use with my double-edged razor. It always leaves my face feeling clean and moisturized. At home, I've been enjoying their new luxury hand-poured candles. And here in my car, I've even got a travel-sized bottle of my signature scent, LX48. We've partnered with Caswell Massey to get you 10% off anything at their store, and you can use the code GENTLEMANS10 to access that discount. And there's even a further discount available for those in our private members club. Just use the link below to shop their soaps, shave creams, fragrances, and more. I know that you gentlemen are going to love these products.
Men often assume that being well connected requires a certain personality type. Outgoing, confident, socially gifted. But in reality, many well-connected men are actually fairly reserved. Sometimes they're actually quite introverted and disagreeable. Because what you need to be well-connected is not to be super charming, it's actually just about being present. It's about showing up consistently. It's about becoming part of the fabric of that industry or that city. Because people trust what they see regularly, and over time, that trust turns into an inclusion. So if you're always bouncing between different gyms, cafes, and social circles, you will struggle to gain traction. And that's one of the downsides that I've noticed by traveling so much. You are always new, you're always unknown, you're always starting again. Just being consistent will do more for your social life than any charismatic tricks ever could. Now, one of the most reliable ways to build a network as an adult man is to join a formal organization. Because the work has already been done for you, the structure already exists. The people who go there are committed, and what's expected of everybody is clear. Depending on what kind of organization you join, you can optimize for people of a similar age group, location, religious beliefs, political affiliations, profession. It doesn't really matter, because what unites all of them is the fact that you're no longer just trying to insert yourself sporadically into all of these different social groups. You actually become a member of something. And that single shift removes an enormous amount of difficulty and friction. That's why we at Gentleman's Collective have our members club. So men who identify with the idea of being a modern gentleman can connect with like-minded individuals both in their city and all over the world. Organizations like ours create reasons to have repeated contact with your members without any of the usual awkwardness. Because everybody's on the same page, and we give each other a reason to see one another again. We also impose certain standards of dress, of contribution, of behavior, and that makes trust so much easier to establish. Modern men often lack this kind of structure in their social lives. They only have loose, informal social arrangements. But that informality can become very fragile. As soon as somebody becomes flaky or your expectations are mismatched, the whole thing collapses. Having structure in your social life is what allows those relationships to deepen without constantly redefining the terms and second-guessing what the other person is thinking. As I said, some men are always surrounded by people despite being introverted and even a little difficult. And the reason why is simple. It's because they are very good at what they do, and people know it. If you can't think of a lawyer or a businessman in your city who's like this, think of a fictional character like Don Draper or Harvey Specter. People make allowances for their slightly disagreeable personalities and even major flaws because the value they bring is undeniable. Their sheer level of competence creates gravitas. Now, this doesn't mean you should neglect your social skills or your presentation. In fact, both of these examples are highly socially skilled in their own way. But it means that there is no substitute for genuine competence and mastery of your craft. A network built solely on your likability is unstable. A network that's built around competence is one built to last. So the goal isn't to choose between improving yourself and having a social life, but it's to pursue both in parallel. One can support the other. Most adult relationships are held together by small, unspoken exchanges, giving introductions, exchanging information, Small favors that don't really feel like favors. Offering help and accepting help is how people begin to rely on each other. And this reliance is what creates community. Now, you don't need to turn this into a strategy or start keeping score. Just pay attention to where you can be useful. Make the introduction, pass along the information, share the contact, and equally importantly, allow other people to help you. Men who insist on being independent often end up rather isolated socially, and they don't really even realize why. But remember, if your generosity feels transactional, people can smell that. If it feels casual and easygoing, then it strengthens the relationship without arousing any cynicism. So don't keep a mental tally. Social life doesn't work that way. Focus on being the kind of friend that you would want and show up in the way that you want to show up. Because the men who are the most socially thriving are seldom the most calculating. So many modern men are optimized for everything except their social lives. They track their sleep, their diet, their training, their work, but they quietly let their relationships slip to the side. So if that resonates with you, it's time to set some expectations for yourself. If you want a network, you need to give yourself the opportunity to network. So make sure you put it in as a commitment to yourself that you will make 2 opportunities per week to meet new people. You will make 1 recurring commitment where you're a regular, and you will put yourself in 1 environment where people would begin to notice if you didn't show up. Put these things in your calendar. Treat them with the same seriousness as you do the gym. Getting a great network is like getting a great physique. You can't sit on the sofa and expect it to be handed to you. You have to embrace discomfort. You have to follow the plan, not how you feel. Because every new environment has a period where you feel slightly out of place. You don't know where to stand, you're not quite sure who to talk to, you don't know who knows whom. Those initial small talk conversations feel superficial and awkward, but in reality, that's simply the cost of entry. If you stay long enough, the real side of the room will reveal itself. People open up once they begin to recognize you, and that awkwardness always fades away with time. That phase, that awkwardness, it is somewhat unavoidable, but the only mistake would be quitting too early. Now, some people won't like this, but if you are not on Instagram or LinkedIn, you are making things harder than they need to be. You don't need to post all the time. You don't need to be an influencer. But these platforms have a useful function. They keep you present in people's minds. Following up with a social media connection after meeting in person creates that continuity. And when you make a story or a post, it reminds people who you are and why they were interested in you. It keeps that flame going even between those in-person interactions. Used properly, social media should support real relationships. It's when it's used poorly that it replaces them. The rule to follow is simple. Your online presence should reflect your offline life. It shouldn't compensate for the absence of one. There's a very noticeable shift in life when you go from being loosely connected to a few people to deeply embedded in a network and a community. You start getting invited rather than being the one to ask. People ask for your opinion. People invite you to join them in collaborations. And you are in a position where you can introduce people to each other. At that point, you know you truly are part of a network, and it's one that maybe you have created. That's when things begin to compound, and the whole connectedness of life becomes a lot easier. But before we wrap up, I should say just a few words about being selective with your time. Every relationship takes energy, and you can't maintain all of them. So pay attention to how you feel after spending time with somebody. Do you leave feeling exhausted and drained, or energized and inspired? Do you return to work more focused, or more distracted? Now, this isn't about judging people, it's about recognizing your limits and how those people affect you. Being a well-connected man is not about being friends with everybody. It's about knowing the right people well enough. The men who move through life securely and smoothly are rarely the most talented, and rarely the most charismatic. They are the ones who are known trusted, and included. In 2026, that doesn't come from being the loudest person in the room, and it certainly doesn't come from constant self-promotion. It comes from showing up repeatedly and being the kind of man that others are comfortable attaching their reputation to. Do the things I've mentioned in this video for long enough, and connection will stop being something that you chase. It will become an intrinsic part of your life.